Knowledge, i.e., yani ilm. Allah knows everything with his eternal knowledge. He knows his being, yani his self. His attributes, yani he knows his being, his attributes, and what he originates, what he creates of his creations. With one knowledge, or by, he knows it by one knowledge. Comprehensive to all knowable things, yani inclusive of all knowable things, or known things. Okay, all that's fine. His knowledge does not change, decrease, increase, or become renewed. Yani, nor does it update. Sama' hearing, i.e., Allah hears with or by his eternal hearing. That is not like the hearing of others. The hearing of Allah is without a beginning, and the hearing of others is originated. This sentence here, the hearing of Allah is without a beginning, and the hearing of others is originated. This is called contrasting, not comparing. Comparing is to show the similarity between two things. Contrasting is to show the difference. So when we talk about Allah Ta'ala, we always contrast because he cannot be compared to anything. Allah hears with his eternal attribute of hearing all hearable things without the need of an ear or any other instrument. And sometimes when we talk about contrasting, sometimes some concept we are explaining requires for us to clarify why it's not a comparison. There always must be a contrast. And also, when you talk to a Wahhabi, he's a likener, he's a God comparer who claims that he believes that God is different from the creations. But he talks without contrast. Well, he will attempt to, but it will be silly. So he would say, Allah, his hand is not like my hand and your hand. That's what he was going to say. Okay, that's at face value, it's not a comparison. He's going to say, isn't your hand different from a squirrel's hand, and different from a ant's hand, and different from a koala's hand, and like this. So right there, then he's comparing Allah to the creations. Or he would say, why you say Allah has sight and hearing and speech, but you refuse to say he has face and hands and eyes? So if you say to him, what's the difference between the sight of Allah and the hearing of the sight and hearing of Allah and the sight and hearing of the creations? I don't know what he's going to say. If you ask him, what's the difference? I don't know what he's going to say here. Other than some generic stuff like, well, it's not like ours, not the same. We can't imagine. He doesn't know what to say. What to say is the sight of the creations, that's a sense of theirs by which they see normally by the way of eyes. And their hearing is a sense also of theirs by which they hear by way of ears. Uh, and it is limited, etc., etc. You say everything about it that's not true about Allah. So then in the end we say, therefore, we're only using the same expression and the meaning is completely different. The author says, Al-Basar, sight, i.e., Allah sees with his or by his attribute of sight that is not like the sight of others. The sight of Allah is without a beginning, and the sight of others is originated. These words here, though, are very, very simplified because of the point of the book, to be a tool for a beginner to complete the obligatory knowledge. This is not for him to become a scientist. This is for him to become a competent Muslim first. With his sight, Allah sees all that is seeable. So here, the explainer has, in his words, taken a position. That position is that Allah sees what's seeable and hears what's hearable. And instead of saying Allah sees everything and hears everything, you can say it this way or that way. And he also said here, Allah knows what's knowable. Instead of saying Allah knows, did he say Allah knows everything? I don't know if he said Allah knows everything. He said Allah knows what's knowable. Also, you can say this either way. Allah knows what's knowable or known, or Allah knows everything. Now, when it comes to hearing and sight, they differed. Which way is better? Hears and sees everything, or hears and sees the hearable and seeable? But when it comes to the knowledge, I don't know that they differentiate here between what's better. To say knows everything or knows the knowable, what I know, these are equal for these scholars when it comes to the knowledge. Hence, he sees his being, his self, and his creations without the need of a pupil or any other instrument. Life, hayah, i.e., Allah is alive with a life that is eternal and everlasting, that does not resemble our lives. It is not by soul, flesh, blood, ligaments, or bone marrow. Al-Kalam, speech, i.e., Allah speaks with one eternal and everlasting speech that does not start or stop. Yes, this is all clear. It is neither letters, sounds, nor a language. Yes, and this sentence here, this English sentence, well, of course, it's translated from the Arabic, but nevertheless, it does not have a denial that his speech is words. It doesn't say it is neither letters, sounds, or language or words. Because in the Arabic, it's not going to deny that the speech of Allah is kalimat, words, which translates as words, plural. But when you say his uh, speech, or if it were to say he has kalimat, words, or kalimatu Rabbi, the words of my Lord, that's in Surah Al-Kahf at the end, it means his speech. And it doesn't mean units of language or units of speech. Just speech only for Allah. Whether you use the singular kalimah or the plural kalimat or the name, which kalam, the name of the attribute kalam, it all refers to the same attribute. Now, when translating or speaking in English, some of our teachers, they might throw the word words in there here. Maybe out of habit or out of not thinking about something that I'm talking about right now, not connecting something. So they would say his speech is not letters or sounds or words or languages. And what they mean is correct. But in terms of something, maybe it would be a good idea to do like what's right here. Don't put the word words in here. And that's not to say you should use the word words in English for the attribute also. It's not necessary, it's not dire that you say the speech of Allah is his words, or the words of Allah, the words of Allah. And just, I just suggest using the Arabic as a model here in this topic of what's denied when we talk about the speech of Allah. And then just deny everything and go around the word words in English. Once, one of the mashayikh, rahimahullah, he was saying, the word doesn't work for Allah. And yeah, he was very firm about it. So when I said, well, let me tell you, Sheikh, And he was shaking his head, like, no. He's basically saying, you're not going to say anything to me. You're not going to convince me. It's okay, okay, Sheikh, it's fine. Yani, I just want to just say to you, don't you know you can say, I want to have a word with you? And then he paused. And then he didn't say anything. And someone was watching on the side, so he was smiling. MashaAllah. So I don't know if he kept the same position, very firm against the word, but MashaAllah. And al-mukhalafatu lil-hawadith, non-resemblance to the creation, i.e., he does not resemble anything of the creation. Because these 13 attributes were mentioned, okay, period. Okay, that's clear. It's like this is a new paragraph here. But this copy here, this translation of Lucid Word, doesn't have a lot of paragraphs, as it should. I find it is just, for the most part, one long block. Maybe they wanted to keep the book as short as possible. The more paragraphs you make, the more you're going to eventually extend the book and increase its size. Because these 13 attributes were mentioned many times in the Islamic texts, meaning the Quran and Hadith, as mentioned before, the scholar said that knowing them is a personal obligation. Yani, the scholars deduced that knowing them is a personal obligation upon every accountable person. Knowing them means knowing their meanings and not memorizing particular statements, not memorizing particular wordings. That's not the personal obligation. Knowing their meanings is the personal obligation. They also said, since eternity has been affirmed to the being of Allah, or confirmed for the self of Allah, this footnote here explains the being of Allah came too late. We've already said the being of Allah for I don't know how many pages now. So this footnote should be advanced. And this is a new paragraph here. They also said, since eternity has been affirmed to the being of Allah by textual and mental proofs, yes, his attributes must be eternal, because the origination of an attribute entails that the attributed being or attributed being is originated. Yeah, yani, if the attributes are created, the one who has them is created. If the one who has the attributes is eternal, then the attributes will be eternal, which means that the being changes from one state to another. Yani, if it has created attributes, then it changes from one state to another or is susceptible to change. It changes or is susceptible to change. If the mere passage of time over something is not change, if, yani, the mere passage of time over something, yani, thereby making it older than it was before, it's getting older and older. If that itself is not a change, if someone's not going to count that as a change, meaning assuming nothing else about it changed in any way whatsoever, never got dusty, never got a crack, nothing, never changed, didn't move or anything, just is still there only. So if being older itself is not regarded as a change, then we're going to say then it's susceptible to change. Or else if we're going to consider it getting older is a change, then we're going to say it's still changed. It says here, which means that the being changes from one state to another, and anything attributed with change is in need of someone that brings about this change. And so, anyone attributed with change cannot be an eternal God. Rather, they are an originated creation. So what's change? Change is to go from one state to another state. Meaning, for a state to vanish and a subsequent state to occur, that's change. Since it has been definitely proven by reason that Allah is eternal, His attributes too must be eternal. By this, the author completed the discussion about the first testification and its explanation. May Allah have mercy upon him. Ameen.